In preparation for one of the most ambitious superhero movies ever made in Spider-Man No Way Home, I decided to watch all of the Spider-Man movies that have come before, and only solo Spider-Man movies, or in a sense solo. So all of Tobey's films, all of Andrew's films, and all of Tom's films. Now the hype for No Way Home is real. There's so much on the line for this film. There's a lot to be anticipated for. And I don't make much Marvel content on my channel, but for the content that I have made revolving Spider-Man, there is a lot of things that I know is going to happen in this film. I have kept myself up with the leaks. Usually I'm not someone who likes to know things before they happen in a film. I don't like knowing leaks. For some reason, this movie was an exception for me. I really wanted to know, don't know why. And I mean, if this movie doesn't deliver, there's a huge issue, but let's just be honest here. This movie is more than likely going to deliver. I think it's going to live up to the hype. Crazier things have happened. Who knows? We'll see. I mean, I know I will be seeing it tomorrow night on Thursday. And I mean, by the time I upload this video, I will technically be seeing it tonight. So I'm gonna rank all of the Spider-Man films and see where we're at up until No Way Home. And just before I get into my rankings, like always, if you do like my channel and you like my content, and maybe you just like my voice or my face, please leave a like on the video and make sure to subscribe. Alright, so I'm going to start with my number one overall favorite Spider-Man movie of all time, and that is going to be Spider-Man 2. With Tobey Maguire. I think Tobey Maguire's second installment is the best Spider-Man film ever made. I've said this to a couple of people before. I actually said this quite recently since I am finished watching all the movies. I honestly believe that Spider-Man 2 is on the top 5 list of best superhero films ever made. Number 1 is, of course, The Dark Knight, but Spider-Man 2 with Tobey Maguire, I might honestly put that at 3 or 4. It is that damn good, and it deserves every piece of recognition it got when it came out. It has got within the past 15, almost 20 years, and any piece of recognition it might get now from No Way Home, it still deserves it. I think it's one of the first films to really dive into what stress is like for a superhero, because when we look at superheroes, we want to think to ourselves, oh, they got superpowers, they're, you know, far more phenomenal than we are. What do they have to worry about? Yeah, sure, they have to fight a villain every now and then, but what's the big deal? But I think this movie really put into perspective, look at Peter's life as a whole. Peter is broke. He doesn't have many friends or family, unfortunately. He lives in this crummy little New York apartment that doesn't even have its own bathroom or kitchen. He's got no girlfriend because he chose to put Mary Jane to the side. He is slowly losing his best friend in Harry. He's not doing good in school. He's constantly being sidetracked by his unpaid job as Spider-Man. All the pictures he takes for the Bugle are underappreciated, and he gets underpaid for it. And then to top that all off, Mary Jane is getting married to another man, and it really shows how stressful his life is. And I think what's really cool is we see a Spider-Man who is just as human as the rest of us. And let's not forget Alfred Molina as Dr. Octopus, probably one of the best supervillain castings of all time. For 2004, the special effects were awesome, and the train scene, the fight, and when Spider-Man needs to stop the train from going off the tracks, just classic. So OG. So my second favorite Spider-Man movie of all time will be actually the first Spider-Man film with Tobey Maguire. This film is very important to me too, because it's not the first film I ever saw in theaters, but it is the first film I can ever remember seeing in theaters. I was old enough to full out remember this experience, and when I was younger, as many people are, their favorite superhero is Spider-Man. And I loved Spider-Man. The way I love Batman as a 25-year-old adult now is the way I loved Spider-Man when I was a child. and this movie was perfect for me. And when I look back on these films too, now that I'm at an age where I can fully understand the films beyond what I could when I was a kid, I look at these films and I think to myself, as we all know, Sam Raimi is a horror director, and you can see a lot of his horror aspects in these Spider-Man films. He uses a lot of jump scares and a lot of thriller type of shots or scenes when it comes to the supervillains. And I think that worked perfectly in the world that he created for his Spider-Man movies. And speaking of great castings of villains, if we're gonna praise Alfred Molina as Dr. Octopus, there's no way we can't talk about the greatest supervillain castings of all time and not put Willem Dafoe as Green Goblin in the top 5. Once again, if I were to sit here and tell you that Heath Ledger, in my opinion, is the #1 top casted supervillain as Joker of all time, I might say Willem Dafoe is second. He's that good and he's just that enjoyable to watch. Every scene he has in this movie is entertaining and your eyes are peeled to the screen. Whether it's him losing his mind as Norman Osborn in his massive penthouse mansion, or if he is gliding around as Green Goblin laughing and throwing pumpkin bombs, every scene of his is entertaining. I also really enjoy Spider-Man 1 simply based off of the fact that Toby Maguire captured nerdy Peter Parker perfectly. Out of all the 3 Spider-Men, Tom, Toby, and Andrew, Toby is by far the best Peter Parker, no question. And they really captured the simplistic yet very complicated ideal of a nerdy or shy teenager who has a crush on a girl that he may internally to himself think that he's got no chance with, or she's far more beautiful than him, or that she would have no interest in him in general. And they really captured that brilliantly. And once again, we have a lot to thank to Toby Maguire of being able to play that nerdy teenager. As for the 3rd Spider-Man film on my list, I am placing The Amazing Spider-Man 1 with Andrew Garfield. Finding the 3rd favorite film in the Spider-Man franchises was really hard for me because the Andrew Garfield movies struggled simply because of writing and storyline. Many may be surprised that I don't have a Tom Holland movie up here, and I have a very specific reason why none of Tom's films have cracked the top 3. I'll get into that once I get into ranking one of his films on my list. The reason why The Amazing Spider-Man 1 with Andrew is number 3 for me is because I don't think it's perfect by any means, and I do believe it was a little too early to reboot Spider-Man only about 5 years after Tobey's 3rd one. Nowadays, we live in a world, I always say this, of reboots and sequels and retellings of stories, so it's not that much of a surprise anymore. But what I appreciate about this film is they did try their best to make it different, and there are scenes in the movie that even make me reconnect with my young Spider-Man fan in my heart and say, okay, that was pretty sick. I gotta say, the downfall of not just this one, but a second one is that Peter Parker is too cool. When I look at Andrew Garfield, it's the way he dresses and the way he dispels himself. He is too cool to be a Peter Parker. If I was, for whatever reason, a bully and I saw Peter Parker roaming the halls of high school, I would never go up to that kid and bully him. He doesn't look like the type of person you'd bully. And also, too, Peter Parker, I don't necessarily think there's anything wrong with making him a skateboarder because they did deal with that in the first one. But I also don't necessarily see Peter Parker being a skateboarder. It was just a character design choice that they chose I don't fully agree with. And I will also say I don't love the suit they used in the first one. I'm not a huge fan of it, but what I will say and why they get points for the suit is because I appreciate the fact that they tried something different. I appreciate that they sat there and they said, we know the normal color is blue and red and he always has spider webs going down his suit that intertwine. What if we just tried something different? And I applaud them for doing that. And to be honest with you, the more you do look at the suit from number 1, it's not horrible. It's just not the best. The villain in The Lizard is okay. It's nothing fantastic. There are a couple of cool fight scenes with him, especially in the school where Spider-Man's getting tossed through walls, or when they're in that corridor where Spider-Man's crawling on him like a spider. I will say the movie did a great job with making Andrew's Spider-Man feel a lot like a spider with the way he moves and the way he webs around. And even though, I'll just say it right now early on for you, The Amazing Spider-Man 2 is bad, but 1 and 2, what they did brilliantly was webplay. They knew how to captivate the audience with how cool webbing around the city would look like, or even showing the web come out of his web shooters. Where in the other Spider-Man, especially in Toby Maguire's, it's just known to web around, that he's going to constantly be webbing. Whereas in The Amazing Spider-Man, they put more emphasis on who Spider-Man is with web shooters. At number 4, I'm putting Spider-Man Homecoming. This movie is outside of the top 3, but technically within the top 5 of the 7 total films as of yet. It was a great introduction for him into the overall MCU. My thing with this Spider-Man is that I don't really like how he seems to always need to be mentored by older superheroes. And I'm not saying that he shouldn't be, and that's not a good thing, because definitely in a world like this, it's needed, you know, especially if there's going to be instances where they fight aliens or other extreme threats, which they do in Avengers, of course. But I almost feel like Tom Holland's Spider-Man so far has never been able to be Spider-Man. He's Iron Boy Jr., and I also just feel like he can't work on his own. It always seems like he needs help from someone else to help him out of the mess. I don't feel connected to this Spider-Man the way I did with Tobey, or hell, even Andrew. And maybe it is the fact that this Spider-Man is supposed to connect with the younger kids of today, whereas this Spider-Man doesn't connect with me that way. Once again, Tobey and Andrew is where it's at for me. Although I will play devil's advocate in the fact that, yes, if you are going to make a younger Spider-Man who's still midway through high school and is now incorporating more tech into the character of Spider-Man, it was a great choice involving Tony Stark's Iron Man, helping him navigate this brand new world. Michael Keaton as Vulture, I wouldn't say was amazing, but it was enjoyable. I did like it. Seeing Vulture as a villain was really cool too. I think the issue so far that in Spider-Man's movies, they haven't been villains of his. They've simply been villains of Tony Stark's, and then Spider-Man just happens to get in the middle of it and now makes them a main villain for him. I think that's another thing I don't really like. It just doesn't feel like there's anything natural about his Spider-Man. His Spider-Man comes from Tony Stark and other Marvel characters. Once again, in a new version and retelling of a Spider-Man, this was a decent way to do it. All right, believe it or not, at number 5, I'm actually going to put Spider-Man 3 with Toby Maguire. This movie is so bad that it's good. And I don't mean to say the movie is horrendous. It's not. There are great things about the movie. The beginning fight with Peter and Harry, the bank robbery fight with Sandman, or when Peter gets in the black suit and fights him in the underground subway station, even the end fight with Venom, who was not utilized properly at all, but the end fight with Spider-Man and Goblin versus Sandman and Venom. Great fight scenes, very entertaining. The story is the weakest of the 3. The dialogue is by far the weakest of the 3. And it is very unfortunate that this movie went through a little bit of production hell, especially when it came to incorporating Venom, which Sam Raimi didn't want to do, at least not until a later date, but Sony forced that upon him. Look, I like Topher Grace, good actor, but as Venom, not a good choice. If you watch the film and pay attention to most of Venom's parts, you can tell a lot of them, if not all of them, were added at the end of filming. You could tell there were a ton of reshoots. It would have looked like the movie still would have been complete even without Venom. But look, Spider-Man 3 has to be given some credit, even if it is the cringiest credit of all time, because without Spider-Man 3, we wouldn't have Bully Maguire, one of the best memes of all time. It works for the movie now. Of course, when the movie first came out, it was like, what the hell am I watching? But yet, it still made money. And it's unfortunate that Sam Raimi was never capable of continuing or even possibly finishing his story with Tobey Maguire. But that might all change after No Way Home. Alright, at number 6, I am putting Spider-Man Far From Home. Look, this movie is enjoyable and I have no problem watching it. Hell, I don't have any problem watching any Spider-Man movie that has been made. Although, with Far From Home, if Spider-Man was not already Iron Boy Jr. in Homecoming, he is certainly Iron Boy Jr. in this film. His actual persona in this film does not feel like Spider-Man to me. It feels more so connected to Iron Man than anything. And especially the villain, Mysterio. Jake Gyllenhaal, great actor. I don't overly love him as Mysterio in this movie. I don't think there's anything special about the character at all. But Mysterio is more so an Iron Man villain than he is a Spider-Man villain. And I mean, Mysterio's a Spider-Man villain. And it just feels like every single time with Tom's movies and just who he is, it doesn't feel like Spider-Man to me. That is my overall point of Tom Holland's Spider-Man so far. It's weird, like, it's Spider-Man, I know, but it doesn't feel genuine the way Tobey's did. Or even Andrew, his felt genuine. He felt like Spider-Man. Tom's feels like a version of Spider-Man that was bitten by a mechanical spider from Stark Industries and not an actual spider. It's just, I don't know. I think what it does come down to is the simple fact that I am not of the younger crowd who this Spider-Man is definitely tailored to. And I do 100% feel like this movie is more so a comedic relief than it is a superhero film, because I swear 75% of this movie is just joke. If I haven't said it before, I'll say it again. That is my main issue with Marvel, is there's too much ha moments. There's not enough, okay, understand this is a superhero movie. Not everything can be funny 24/7. That's just a personal gripe of mine, and that is why Tom's movies overall rank a little bit lower than other Spider-Man films. And finally, as I'm sure you could all tell, I am putting The Amazing Spider-Man 2 with Andrew Garfield at number 7. I want to like this movie so bad. When the movie came out, I did, and even now, I want to like this movie. When I rewatched it the other day, I was hoping I was going to come out of it saying, you know what, it isn't all that bad. It's not perfect, but it's not all that bad. But unfortunately, it is bad. It's not great by any means. It's a solid 5 out of 10, maybe. I think there are 100% fantastic things about the movie. The action is great. Hans Zimmer doing the soundtrack is also great. Like I said when I talked about The Amazing Spider-Man 1, the web play and the web design is a lot of fun. Seeing him soar and swing around the city and certain slow motion scenes that Mark Webb did was awesome. I think there are so many scenes in that film that made me go like, dude, that was really cool. They did a great job with that. Even Electro, his powers and abilities were really neat. Where the movie drops is the storytelling and the writing. It is so bad. There is way too much going on in that film. The death and the mystery of Peter's parents. Peter trying to maintain a normal life outside of Spider-Man. Peter going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth with Gwen Stacy, being introduced to Harry Osborn, and in one goddamn movie, he turns evil and into Green Goblin. Having Jamie Foxx's Electro, which I enjoyed, other than his backstory. He literally turns bad because Peter didn't show up to his birthday party or didn't remember him or his birthday or whatever. Really, really weird choices that they made with characters. Even bringing Rhino into the movie and literally ending the movie in a massive fight scene with Rhino. They had something interesting going on here with the fact that Oscorp was basically the prime cause of all of his problems and all of his villains. And I do believe that there are shreds of very interesting things that could have come from this Spider-Man universe. But unfortunately, it was just not executed well at all. Even though there, like I said, are aspects to this film that are entertaining, and even the Spider-Man suit, I would 100% argue it might be the best Spider-Man suit of any live action suit. This suit feels like it was ripped from a comic book. Andrew Garfield is great as always, decent as Peter Parker, but in my opinion is a fantastic Spider-Man. All of those decent things were not enough to save the movie with how bad the story direction and writing is. Well, there you have it. That is my top 7 list of all live action Spider-Man films. When I do see No Way Home tomorrow, well, technically tonight when the video is posted, I will be making a review for that movie. And when I do, I will also place it amongst my rankings of Spider-Man films at the end of my Spider-Man review, so then you'll be able to see where my Spider-Man list does end up changing. But anyways, everyone, that is it for this video. Leave down in the comments below whether or not you agree with my list, or just simply give me your ranking list, what Spider-Man movie you would have first all the way up to last. So I will see you all very soon for a No Way Home Spider-Man review, which if anyone else is seeing it out there, which I'm sure 95% of the population will be doing, I hope you all enjoy it. And until next time, I will talk to you all very soon.